shit, before I get back into doing some drawing and actually productive things my evening, addendum to the last video. And there are, in the middle of all my tangents and waffles there, a couple of things I forgot to mention. I probably should write a script like people keep telling me to do, but fuck yeah, I don't want to. I like ranting randomly with no like kind of general direction or anything. The thing I missed was, in amongst all of that sort of get around the bureaucrats and stuff, you've got to watch your language. And I don't mean in being polite, I already covered that point. Be nice to people. People with discretionary authority are likely to use it in your favor if you're nice to them and they think you're a cool person. But no, I mean in terms of your actual linguistics use. So one of the things I did when I was dealing with the council officer is, even though it's quite clear that I sleep in the thing, I literally got out of bed in front of the guy out of my sleeping bag and whatnot. I referred to the structure as being my studio, because it was as well. And at another point said it was an experiment. I was experimenting with various construction methods and stuff as part of my work as an artist and a designing engineering person. And I also mentioned my blog, that I was blogging the whole thing, and I gave him the address for it and all of that kind of stuff. The reason I did that wasn't just because I was having a nice conversation and I'm passionate about my subject and sharing it with people. I deliberately didn't use the term tiny house. I deliberately didn't say it was my house, and I didn't say anything about my sleeping there. I certainly wouldn't at all ever. And even though he'd seen me do it, he kind of politely was ignoring that. But because if he wanted to, he could probably pull the if you're occupying it and sleeping it, then the caravan thing applies. You can only be here for 60 days or whatever. He never even brought that up. But probably because I was nice and because, I don't know, maybe having facial tattoos means bureaucrats are nicer to me. It's possible. But yeah, the thing I wanted to point out was, if you're dealing with neighbours or anyone else, try to use terminology that doesn't sort of get people's back up. So if you refer to something as being your house or your home, even though that's quite cool and can make you feel good, you can be a little careful. Because the kind of people who might be listening to you say that, when you say house, that means building, that means XYZ code applies in a lot of people's heads, especially if you're dealing with officialdom. Whereas if you call it a structure, or say it's your studio or your workspace or something like that, that's completely different. See, that caravan law, for instance, doesn't apply to caravans that are just sitting on somebody's property. It applies to caravans that are being occupied. So say if I use a caravan as my tattoo studio, and when you open the door, it looks like a tattoo studio, and there's art all over the walls and stuff, which is basically what it would look like if I was living in a caravan. Then unless they turn up at 4 o'clock in the morning and find you sleeping in it, and even then you go, I crashed out after work. What's the big deal? I'm allowed to crash at work overnight. Just can't do it for 60 days consecutively. You see what I'm going with this? Like, whenever you're talking to people or whatever, be careful about how you talk about your structure and what it is that you're doing. Try to be friends with people if it's at all possible, even if they're being a dick. Try to use terminology that veers away from things like buildings and houses and stuff that have clear bylaws and bullcrap you don't want to be dealing with involved. And what was the other one? And have a blog or something. Have media presence. Do creative things with it. It's really great for people like me to be able to go online and see what other people are doing with this kind of shit. And exchange ideas, be members of forums and things like that at least. But if you can, you be bothered with it, blog your work a little bit and stuff, your build process or the issues you've run into or whatever, because it's really, really cool. You want to be a little bit careful about being antagonistic if someone comes over and start filming them at the time, but maybe that's something you can do, like really calmly and be like, do you mind if I film? Because I'm doing this blog. And it's really important for my viewers to sort of understand the kind of problems we can run into while we're doing this sort of thing, and how we get around this. So do you mind if I film our interaction or whatever, Not do the whole, I'm filming you and therefore, because, again, you're going to get people's back up. But, sometimes I've done this before myself. Sometimes when you do that, they go, look, I'd prefer you didn't. But they change their tune really rapidly as well, because you just mentioned you've got a blog and you've got viewers and stuff. Even if you have 2 viewers, that doesn't matter. All they heard was blog and viewers. And as I said in my video, this is an addendum to, politicians care about shit like that. Bureaucrats care about shit like that because it's their ass if they get it wrong. That guy who's coming around to your house today and go, well, blah, 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 this code and that thing that you're being perfectly polite to. Afterwards, you can do a big sob story to the media and he could lose his fucking job. Or he can get demoted. Or he can at least get told off or something. and have to issue a public apology or something. The people worry about this shit. It matters to them. So be aware of it. Right. That's enough rant for an addendum.